Count your blessings, name them one by one. Count your blessings, see what God has done. Sing with me. Count your blessings, name them one by one. Count your many blessings, see what God has done. Well, I've been thinking about that lately. That song has been in my mind and my heart lately. And it's so easy to focus on a lot of negative things. But I was just thinking this last night, this morning, of just how blessed I am. And what about you? Do you feel blessed? Do you feel happy or content or fortunate? All those words combined in the word blessed. Well, if not, look up. Look, there's a roof, possibly, surely, over your head. Um, look right here, midsection. There's food there. You're not hungry. A lot of other things that you could say. Look down at your feet. You probably have some shoes on. You may be at home with no shoes, but you got a closet full. We got clothes and shoes, and we got roof over our head and food in our stomachs and pantries. And man, we would say we're blessed, but we could also look around and be discouraged at sickness and job situations and finances and relationship problems and death and cancers and all kinds of things. But one of the things that we learn in the scriptures is that being blessed is not necessarily a product of external things, but of internal things. And so it's very easy for us to be discouraged and think that we are not blessed because we see with our eyes and we see a lot of negative and bad things happen, and bad things are happening around us or to us and through us. And so it's very easy for us to do that. Well, one of the greatest sermons ever preached was called the Sermon on the Mount. And Jesus began that Sermon on the Mount with what we call the Beatitudes. And so the word beatitude, meaning blessed or happy or fortunate, the first 16 verses of Matthew chapter 5 describe the character of a Christian. What the character of a Christian ought to look like, and then the rest of the Sermon on the Mount really deals with the conduct of a Christian. So, what flows out of our character, and so we all know that our conduct is a byproduct of our character. So, what you do, what you say, comes from who you are, your character as a person, and so character always comes before conduct. And so, because who we are determines what we do. And so we learn that. And so we have to look at our character and our attitude. How is your attitude lately? Are you just ready to throw in the towel, or this homeschooling thing got you feeling anxious and ready for these teachers to take back over? Maybe so. But how is our attitude? In the first part of the Sermon on the Mount, Jesus talks about our attitude, our character, and he gives a number of attitudes that should be a part of our character, be in us. So the be attitude. So these attitudes ought to be a part of who we are and in our lives. And so you read these statements: blessed are the poor in spirit, blessed are this, blessed are that, and we'll talk about them in just a minute. But obviously these are not byproducts, or they could not be products of the Pharisaic righteousness, meaning the Pharisees in Jesus' time, they were more concerned about external qualities, your conduct, rather what Jesus is addressing here in the Beatitudes. And so the Pharisees, much like you and I, we are more, we give more attention and we judge more by external qualities, our conduct, rather than our character. And so what Jesus is mentioning in the Beatitudes on the Sermon on the Mount is starting with your character, starting with the internal qualities of who you are. And so these only can come, and the reason why Jesus starts here is these only can come from the Lord. They can only come from faith in God, faith in the gospel. And so when one places his trust in who God is, these are the attitudes that come from that. And so my question is, how is your attitude? Is this what your attitude looks like right now? And so I just want to maybe walk through these for just a moment, and just maybe talk to you about them if we can. So let's read them together. Matthew chapter 5, starting in verse 1. Matthew 5, verse 1. When he saw the crowds, he went up on the mountain, and after he sat down, his disciples came to him. Then he began to teach them, saying, so here it comes, here it comes. Blessed are the poor in spirit, for the kingdom of heaven is theirs. Blessed are those who mourn, for they will be comforted. Blessed are the humble, for they will inherit the earth. Blessed are those who hunger and thirst for righteousness, for they will be filled. Blessed are the merciful, for they will be shown mercy. Blessed are the pure in heart, for they will see God. Blessed are the peacemakers, for they will be called sons of God. Blessed are those who are persecuted because of righteousness, for is theirs. And so Jesus begins this amazing sermon with your character, with your attitude, who you are. And he knows none of these are possible apart from faith in God. So, man, what a great time to start preaching to people. And that is to bring them to faith in Christ and faith in God. And so he begins with these attitudes and characters. So let's just look at them real fast if we can, kind of individually, and we won't take a whole lot of time, but just look at them individually and just kind of see what we can learn from them. So the first one, he says, "Blessed are the poor in spirit, for the kingdom of heaven is theirs." This is when it says poor in spirit, meaning emptied out so you can be filled with the Lord and the things of God. Meaning you have noted that there is nothing in you that pleases the Lord because of who you are in your sin nature. It starts there. And as you'll see, there's this progression that starts with poor in spirit, meaning nothing in me pleases God. And it ends with, at the very end, the kingdom of heaven is yours. And so there's this gospel presentation in the Sermon on the Mount, the Beatitudes. But it starts with being poor in spirit, meaning there is nothing in me that pleases God. The only thing for you, I hope, is Christ. And so blessed are the poor in spirit. Is that your character? Is your character marked by being poor in spirit, that you can acknowledge there's nothing good in me? The second one, blessed are those who mourn, for they will be comforted. Do you have the attitude or the character that you mourn over your sin? Is it your character that you're not captured by, you mourn over your sin and for the sin around you and the sin around us? It's so easy to be entangled in sin today and just brush it off like it's no big deal. And we do that so often, as if sin's just not a big deal, and we can sin, it's not a problem. But Jesus says, blessed are those who mourn, for they will be comforted. This mourning is a mourning over sin in your life. Is your character who you are? Are you so disgusted with sin in your life that you mourn over that? When was the last time we have mourned over our sin and the sin around us? He goes on, blessed are the humble, for they will inherit the earth. There is a meekness about us. There should be a meekness about us. It's meekness doesn't mean weakness, and we've seen people say that meekness is not weakness. Jesus was a very humble servant, and yet he would drive out the money changers in the temple. And so it doesn't mean that he was weak. It just means you're humble. You are letting go of your rights of your life, and you're putting them and trusting them in the hands of God. You're living for his glory and not for your own. We are to show meekness and humility. Why? Because we're prone to be self-willed. We're prone to do things our own way. but we must live with a heart of humility and meekness, and saying, Lord, not my will, but yours be done. And so, is that your attitude? Is that your character? That your character is, you want to only see the God's will done in your life, that you don't have a self will, but you want God's will. Blessed are the humble, for they will inherit the earth. He goes on, blessed are those who hunger and thirst for righteousness. What does this mean? Well, as you begin with poor in spirit, meaning nothing in me pleases God, you go for, moves you to mourning over your sin and the sin, and then you begin to have this humble spirit, meaning you're being broken down, to be only to be built back up from the Lord. And so, as you're broken down in humility, you move to blessed are those who hunger and thirst for righteousness. So now, because you're poor in spirit, nothing in you pleases God, you are mourning over your sin, you are being humbled. Now, does your character hunger and thirst for righteousness? Meaning, are you hungering and thirsting for spiritual things and not worldly things? Is that your attitude? Is that your heart? Is that your character, that you hunger and thirst for godly things and not worldly things? Do you see this progression? It's happening. It's the gospel progression happening right before our eyes. And then it says, verse 7, blessed are the merciful, for they will be shown mercy. So after you're poor in your heart, you're beginning to hunger and thirst for the things of God, for spiritual things. Then it says, you'll become merciful, for you will be shown mercy too. You're extending mercy and forgiveness to others. Is that your heart? Is that your attitude? Is that your character, that you extend mercy and forgiveness to other people only because God has extended mercy and forgiveness to you and to me? And I hope that is your character and who you are. After that, it says, "Blessed are the pure in heart, for they will see God." Man, that's an amazing beatitude. Blessed are the pure in heart, for they will see God. This is an inward cleansing. This is a repentance. This is God cleansing us because we realize we cannot please God. We're poor in spirit, because we're mourning over our sin, because we are humble in our spirit, because we are hungering and thirsting for spiritual things, because we are extending mercy. Now we begin to have this pure in heart, this clean inward purification of sin. And the Bible says, blessed are the pure in heart, for they will see God. Man, isn't that what you want? Isn't that the attitude of your heart, is to see God? The only way is if you have a pure heart and a purification of your sin, knowing Christ. And then look at number 9. So number 9 is, maybe you're a Christian now. Look at verse 9. Blessed are the peacemakers, for they will be called sons of God. You know what this is? These are people who are instruments of peace. Everywhere they go, they bring peace. Is that you? Do you bring peace everywhere you go? Or do you, for some reason, you always find that there's always chaos or drama around you? You know people like that. You may be one. Seems like drama follows you. It may not be following you. You may be the drama. It may not be following you around. You may be the cause of your drama. You're not a peacemaker. You're always saying things. I know people say, "Well, I'm just speaking my heart," or people say, "Well, I'm just speaking the truth." Well, just because it's true doesn't mean you should say it. Just because you have freedom of speech doesn't mean you should do it. We ought to be peacemakers, meaning everywhere we go, we're just spreading out peace around us, peace in your home, peace with your spouse, peace among your children, peace at your workplace, at wherever we go. There ought to be peace all around us. Are you that? Are you a peacemaker? We have, as Christians, we have what's called the gospel of peace. We bring peace into war, into times of death and decay and sin. We bring the gospel of peace because Jesus is peace. God brings peace. And listen, it's not peace at any cost, meaning we're just going to give in to things. That's not what this means. It means like a holiness. It's not peace where we'll just compromise sin so that we can have peace. Like, "Well, I'm just going to do it just so I'll have peace in the home, or I'll let them get by with that just so we'll have some peace in the home." No, but we ought to be peacemakers. We have the gospel of peace. We have the gospel of Christ, but we should not be contentious as we contend for the faith. But we ought to be peacemakers. We do that with wisdom. Is that your character? Are you characterized by being a peacemaker? I hope so. I hope that's the attitude of your heart, that you're a peacemaker. And then the last one is, blessed are those who are persecuted because of righteousness, for the kingdom of heaven is theirs. Please don't miss this. Blessed are those who are persecuted because of righteousness, not because you are a jerk to somebody, not because we can't have church because of this COVID-19. We're not being persecuted. No, this is wise. It's wise for us not to gather together. We're not being persecuted. Um, we're being separated because of an illness, because of a pandemic. Now, if the government were to come down and say you can't have church now, or you can't have church ever now, we got some issues. But they're not doing that. The government is being wise in calling us to stay separated for some time, and we want to be wise in doing that too. But blessed are those who are persecuted. You know why it says that? Because if your character is built by all of these, poor in spirit, those who mourn, the humble, those who hunger and thirst for righteousness, you're merciful, pure in heart, and a peacemaker, then um, people will begin to falsely accuse you of things. Uh, we should never be guilty of asking for persecution. But listen, if you live a godly life characterized by these beatitudes, suffering will come, and that's okay. Jesus said it would. But look, what are the rewards? We're in the same company as Jesus and the prophets, and we shall be rewarded in heaven. And that's what it says. For the kingdom of heaven is theirs. Let me tell you something. If God says you can have heaven, but you got to go through all this suffering, wouldn't you still do it? Surely you would still do it. Or would you take the other option of you can have the world and have no issues, no persecution, no problems in your life, but you don't get to go to heaven? Which one would you choose? Hopefully you would choose these beatitudes. I pray these attitudes are being in you. And so, listen, may you be characterized by those things. And I pray your character produces godly conduct. Love all of these. I love you. And I hope you have such a wonderful day, wonderful night, a wonderful second half of your week. We're excited about church on Sunday. And you tune in again at 10 o'clock this Sunday. And man, we're looking forward to Palm Sunday and Easter season. And so, hey, I love you, East Teboga Baptist Church. I love you, and all those that are watching, we love you. Your staff is praying, and start singing that song. Count your blessings, name them one by one. Count your blessings, see what God has done. Count your blessings, name them one by one. Keep going, because there's a lot. Count your blessings, see what God has done. I love you.